And I'm just going to read a little bit through her profile. I mean, what we do on this session, this is the second episode that we're having of this. And what we do on this segment, on this program, is just to spotlight some of the beautiful people that we meet that, come to us, our SA&A learning programs. My name is Shola Abulu, by the way. I'm the principal consultant of Shola Abulu and Associates. So I meet so many people in the course of my work that I just felt this is an opportunity to just, show some of us the conversations that we have behind the scenes in class, and just some of the beautiful people that are in the comms profession. I hope this will be inspiring for people who are in the comms profession, who are growing professionals, leaders, and all of that. So Rukewa is a public relations and communications consultant with 8 years of experience across marketing, branding, and strategic communications. She's the founder and principal consultant of Comms 54, which is a strategic communications consultancy based in Lagos, Nigeria. Her career began in marketing and in branding, where she developed a sharp understanding of how businesses build identity and connect with their audiences. Over time, her focus has sharpened into the discipline, into the discipline of communication, specifically how organizations speak, respond, and show up when it matters most. That evolution shapes everything about how she works today. At the core of her practice is the belief that communications is not a support function, but is a strategic one. She believes that every brand has a reputation, whether it is managed or not, and that her work is about making that reputation intentional. Through Comms 54, she works with, by the way, I will ask you, why Comms 54? Why 54? She works with corporate impact-driven and lifestyle and hospitality brands across Nigeria. And what I like about this conversation is that this is communications consultant, but she's focused on lifestyle and hospitality brands, and then she says corporate and impact driven. She'll talk us through what that means. So her area of specialization it spans the entire comms life cycle, from building proactive PR strategies, managing corporate narratives, to navigating crisis situations with precision, and advising leadership on how they communicate at every level of the organization. She's worked with a lot of major brands across some of these sectors. And Comms 54, Gregory says who? And her specialization is strategic PR, corporate communications, reputation management, crisis management and advisory, events communication, and tactical PR. Again, like I said, she works primarily with corporate impact-driven organizations, lifestyle and hospitality. So Rukewe, welcome to our spotlight on SA&A course alumni. We're glad to have you here.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm honored to be here.
So thank you, Rukewe. So let's kick off right onto it. And I'd like to say to everyone, if you have any questions, please put it in the comments. This is supposed to be interactive. So Rukewe, please tell us a bit about yourself.
So yes, my name is Rukewe. Rukewe is from Delta State. Rukewe Dukuye. I'm a communications and public relations consultant. And as Essie has described me, when she was reading my bio, I was wondering if that was me. I started my journey in lifestyle and hospitality, but I have somehow decided that, okay, that's not the end of me. There's more to me. So I also explore corporate communications and also impact-driven clients as well. And I am the founder of Comms 54. Essie, as you asked, why Comms 54? Very, very good question. I always like talking about why. So comms, as we know, is communications. So that's the abbreviation of communications, comms. And 54 is really because there are 54 countries in Africa. So we're not a local, alone agency. We're also global. So yes, comms 54, that is why. So we operate from Africa. We're able to service clients internationally, locally in Africa. And yeah, that's the reason why we chose that name. And that's a little about me.
Okay, that's lovely. So just be on mute, please. Sorry, if you can.
Okay, sure.
So that's lovely. Comms 54. 54. I like that. 54. Are we 54 countries in Africa? Somehow I feel in my mind, if you ask me, I'll have said 55 or 56, but we are still 54. Okay, that's good to know. So by the time we become 55 and 56, anyways, because there will be more countries coming out, but then either way, you are covered with most of them. So now, how did you get into communications?
So I would say that my journey really started from when I was little. Because if I tell the story, I would also say that I've always been passionate about the com side, but particularly journalism. When I was little and they would ask me, what do you want to be? I would always say, I want to be a journalist. I want to be a journalist. Matter of fact, when I was in primary four, I believe, there was a time where you're supposed to come with what you want to be when you grow up. And I had to make my dad buy those charts, those calendars, that they have different professions. And I went with mine to school, and there were two newscasters. And I said, yes, journalist, journalist, journalist. So when growing up, I would watch NTA. I always had one tiny radio by my side to listen to radio. I liked the way the presenters used to speak, the intonations of their voices, music playing on radio. I always loved that angle of communication. So I took it with me as I grew up. It didn't stop, it didn't drop. And when I got into university, I studied mass communication. So in my own specialty at the time, it was still journalism. I still wanted to be a presenter. So I wanted to now be a presenter. I'm like, okay, let's see how this goes. Even after in fact, I interned at Echo FM during my internship. I also attended the journalism school in Lagos as well. But in operations, when I started with Smooth FM. I realized that do I really want to do this presenting thing? So that's when I took a turn and I did digital marketing for a bit. So I was in marketing for a bit. So I started with that. I would advise clients on how they should communicate, how they should get their content, how their content should look like. In fact, I'm still young, but younger, I would always look for clients to say, no, I can direct your videography. I can tell you how you should shoot your content for your campaign, and you need to also shoot it and document it for future purposes. Your content should, So it started like that. And then I went into PR from there because I said, well, there should be more than this. I'm sure that there is more than digital marketing. There's more than marketing. And I said, okay, let me explore all of the angles of this, our field. And then I got into PR. Now, when I got into PR, I did PR for a number of time, and I'm like, oh, isn't there more? Isn't there more? And I'm like, yes. So in PR is a peripheral of the comms umbrella. I'm like, oh, so what is this communications thing? So it was from the curiosity. I was like, is there any way to take a course to understand the full scope of what I am even doing? Because all the while, I've done this on my own without anybody particularly holding my hand. I know that I had taken a course somewhere else, but that was more marketing focused. And like, I know. So that's when a friend recommended SA's course. And I said, oh, I should definitely explore this. And that's where I took your course. Since then, my horizon has been broadening and getting wider. And that's how my journey started. Yeah.
Interesting. I really like that. You know what I like about this conversation is that we're talking about pathways, because I think this is something that a lot of communications people struggle with. How you started off with journalism, it's always been about being on TV, being a newscaster, and that kind of thing. The interest for that was there. Then you found yourself from journalism, you became more curious, you moved more into digital marketing, from digital marketing to PR, and then from PR into comms. Do you know that you've just given an ideal pathway for somebody coming in who wants to transition who came in through journalism? You have just plotted a pathway of how you can get to comms. And you don't even know how, anyway, I'm not going to talk about some piece of work that I'm already doing on the side on this, but what I would take from this for people listening and those who are watching live and those who watch afterwards is that you hear how she says she has had to leapfrog. She's had to take, is a mixture of experiences as well as training and all of that. She had to decide to transition. Transitioning does not happen randomly. You don't just transition randomly. It's either somebody, maybe the place you are working in forces you to transition by giving you tasks, or you take the initiative to transition yourself. And I also like the fact that in fact, at every point, it was like you took the initiative, because it wasn't like there was anybody guiding your career, but you also got to a point exactly when you realized that there was a limit to what you had learned, and then you needed to get, other things. So I like that. I like how you talk about expanding your horizons after the course. So how would you describe yourself in general? And how do you think that has affected your how you operate as a person?
Hmm. I would describe myself as a very serious person. I'm even now just trying to not be serious anymore. I'm a very serious person because I've always studied. I think it's reading and personal development that has gotten me this far in life. I think that that's what brought me here. So every opportunity I get, I take that to study. I take that to read. I take that to research. Look for one case study. Find out why. My curiosity really brought me here. So I'd say that I'm serious. I'm hardworking, which ties into seriousness, and I'm a very excellent person because anything that I stamp my name on, I really don't want it to be shabby. So it also has influenced the places and the people that I have worked with. So who I work with or who I learn from are also excellent people. So that way, I am also increasing my mileage of excellence. So I think that those are the things that make me, but I'm a serious person. I'm trying to not be serious. As a matter of fact, this year was the year that I realized that I needed to smile more. I needed to be a little more interactive because I'm a social person, but I'm just a very serious person. Yes. So, so yes, those are the things that make up Rikaway. Yeah, and
Interesting.
yeah, and I love movies. I love to read. I read a lot. Again, I'm a curious person, so I love to read. I love movies. I love fashion, and I love the beautiful things of life. And I'm a very soul driven person. I have depth. I don't think that things. I think that things are beyond surface. That sometimes things can be very deep. So that's how I'll describe myself.
Thank you for that. I really like that. You say you're a serious person, Sha. By the way, I you do you do I think I mean you do come across as serious, but you're friendly. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I don't think the seriousness is a bad thing because you're really, really friendly and you're sociable as well. You're also likable. So for me, the fact that you have the combination of seriousness and likability is a very bankable asset because if you are serious and you're not likable, there's a problem, particularly in a profession. And that's one thing nobody talks about it, but you have to be likable in this profession. And I just want to welcome those of us who are, if you're wherever it is you're joining from, those who have told us that they are joining from different countries. Zigbordi, I hope I'm pronouncing your name well, joining live from Ghana. Thank you for joining. And then Chief we have a Chief Biriwasha from Zimbabwe. Welcome to our session, our program. Thank you for joining. Like, comment, please. Welcome. Thank you for being here. So I like everything that you said. You read a lot. That's very important. So I really get that because when I see comes people who don't read, I just wonder, you're in the wrong profession. Please, maybe you need to be somewhere else because how you anyway, let me not talk so much because we're now going to ask you to tell you about your work as a communications consultant. What are the pros, what are the cons, what are the upsides and the downsides? And really, a lot of people joining here, most people are we don't have many people that call themselves communications consultants, and it's not in our part of the world. What is more common is comms professionals working either corporate, private, or public sector or development sector, and then people working PR agencies. Very few people actually self-identify, promote themselves, and are working in that space called communications consultant. I say this because I hardly ever meet people. I mean, we've trained 100 and something people. Out of that, only a few will come and say they are consultants. Even when they are consultants, they are PR consultants, not necessarily comms consultant. In fact, I've not even really met a PR consultant. If I have, and you're in the chat, and I'm miscategorizing you, please shout. So yeah. So tell us a bit about your work as a communications consultant for the sake of everyone listening. Pros, cons, upsides, downsides. Over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that question. So the pros of being a communications consultant, I think that it's very good for the clients or partners that you work with, because what a lot of organizations, individuals, and brands have focused more on over time is maybe public relations and marketing. And What we fail to realize is that marketing is very broad, and under marketing there are lots of tiers. And then under marketing, that's where the product formulation starts from. That's where knowing the person you're producing the product or business starts from. But after marketing, there's something that you need to do. If you've said these are the people that need my products, how do you then speak to those people? That's where we come in as communications professionals. So for communication consultants, job is to really build the overall arc and build the overall strategy to say that, okay, this is how we're going to communicate. And then that's why you now have the various means of communication. You see the digital marketing, you see the PR, you see the advertising, you would see the all of that. So communication, I would really say, is like we're the architects. We create the structure that everything sits on. And doing that kind of work for me, I would really say that it is always very exciting. Because there are some times where you work with clients that don't understand, they've not built a communication structure, and they're just doing a lot of things without having a solid foundation. And there would be problems somewhere along the way if you continue like that as a brand or as an organization. So the pro for me is doing the work by developing the communication structure for the clients. And then I know that the clients would have a clear definition of how they would communicate going forward. So it's also rewarding for them. So I'd say that that's the pro. I would say that the con is because of the lack of information and knowledge, mostly from the client side, they don't understand the importance of the work that you're trying to do for them. So a lot of times you have to start speaking English, and a lot of times it looks like you're begging them to do the right thing for them. And it is a problem because I don't want to be explaining that you need this. I don't want to be explaining that you should go for this. I don't feel like I should be educating you all the time that this is why you need this. But unfortunately for us, we have to do that. It is like we have to do elementary and foundational training for our clients to let them know this is why you need certain things before we start the work. That's not always fun for me, even though it's easy to do, because I have to do that, and then you have to wait to see if they would check, do I want this? So the fact that I have to try to convince you to do what I know is essential for you and your organization, I don't find that very exciting all the time.
Oh my word, I can so relate. I want feedback from people on the in the audience. I don't know if you can relate to. So I'm going to try to make this a little bit relevant for everyone that is going to watch, that is watching this live and who will watch it later on. You heard what Rukewe just said. She says the pro, first of all, is that you are doing the work, you're helping to build the structure and the foundation for comms, which is very, very important. Many of us just go ahead and do stuff. We're not building a structure. So at the end of the day, it's not replicable. We don't even know if it's delivered value or not. Most of the time, project sponsors are not particularly happy because we didn't even agree or set expectations before we started and all of that. And that's how a lot of us are just running. It's enough just to say I ran the campaign, we did the event. They're not tying it to why, what, whom, where, when, how do we measure, what does success look like. So that entire structure is what communications consultants do. And I'm saying all of this so that if you're working client side, you understand why sometimes, if you're working within a company or an organization, why sometimes you get left back as a comms professional when they want to do certain strategic things. They are looking for expertise outside, or they hire somebody from outside to come and head you, whereas you have been the one, because you've been operating tactically. And like Rukewe said, it's something we see. There is only tactical will get you only so far. There's a place you will get to, you will have to start building structure, start working from the foundation. And if they see that the expertise in-house is not there, they will look outside, either part-time or full-time. That's the way that works. So now on the cons, what she was talking about of how you help, you have to talk about the importance of your work. Now, this applies to every comms professional because unfortunately, the education around our profession is very low. So even you working in comms, even if you are paid employee working in corporate or NGO, public or private, you had better be educating your organization about the value of comms. Be showing them, tell and show, because if not, you have to create the space for and support for your own work for you to deliver, because people don't know a lot about our profession. And guess what? That is why we started training. We didn't start SA&A training because we wanted to train. We were a consulting firm, but we saw that the knowledge gap was so wide, not just in the business world, but even amongst comms professionals. So the courses are to build the gap, just so that by the time we go into conversations, even in teams, there is more of us are aligned in our thinking. That's just that. So she said something. I would like to hear your comments about this from those of us that are joining, just to hear a little bit about that. Because again, it's also good to hear whether for those of our colleagues, people joining from Ghana, Zimbabwe, and other countries, do you notice, is it like that in your country? We are speaking from our context within Nigeria and the other countries that we've worked in. But in your specific context, is it the same as well? So now we're going to get into so Rukewe, what she focuses on lifestyle and hospitality, which is of course very different from some of us who are 100% corporate. I do mostly corporate and business, primarily energy sector and related sectors, and a few others. On the training side, we consult. Everybody comes for our training across sectors. So that's multi-sector. And I do a bit of public sector as well, pro bono, political. So I've never really done lifestyle and hospitality. It's not even in our, as in SA&A, is not even part of our client zone at all. As in, we're not even looking to even be in that space because it's a different animal completely. So I want to hear from you. How is that? You know, how what are the peculiarities that you observe in that space as compared with other sectors? Although you do say, I know you said you do a bit of corporate too, but in those particular lifestyle and hospitality, how is it different?
So I'd say that I think I'm very thankful because I've had a conversation with you, Essay, that at some point I'm looking for how to integrate all of these things that I do, but it got to the point where I felt like I needed more. I've done lifestyle, I've done hospitality. At some point, it feels empty for me. Not that it's not good work, but I feel like there is more. And that's why I said I shifted. So I would like to say that I am proudly carrying everything under one umbrella. I know that Esther, you're very big on specializing. You're very big. But I said, if I have these skills in lifestyle and hospitality, and I'm again, as you grow, you expand, and your knowledge gap closes. I don't want to just kill them in my sleep. If you wake me to do anything lifestyle and hospitality, I will do it for you. But I've also expanded to be able to carry the whole thing. So I've expanded. But yes.
So what are the differences between the two? What
Yes, yes.
similarities
So now
and
for
differences?
lifestyle and hospitality, lifestyle, you're in the fashion, you have the um, tourism, sometimes entertainment, movies, premieres and all of those. And then for hospitality, you have hospitality tourism, you have nightlife, you have restaurants, you have all of those, under lifestyle. So you have skincare products. It's a very broad portfolio. Now, it is a little different. I would say that not even a little. It's very different. I would say that it is more tactical in the communications for, you know, m- m- maybe not the word tactical, but with those type of
Experiential?
in those type of sectors, yes, it's mostly experiential because people want to see the lifestyle angle of things. People want to see what do influencers look like if they hold this thing. How do they come out and then appear in the premiere, so it is very glamorous, and that is one of like the major metrics that we have to hit. What ties it into corporate is the messaging still remains, because if you're doing your glamorous and beautiful and exciting entertainment tactics and nobody knows what you're talking about, there's a problem. And there are sometimes a lot of people forget the message and just go ahead to do lifestyle comms or lifestyle PR. So the difference is, it's not the work is still the work, but the outlook is very different. What the audience are looking to engage with is nothing very serious. They want something light. They want something that they can weigh in their opinion on. They want people looking very good. They want the gist. They want the glam, the glam and the glitz. They want the beauty. You know, aesthetics is very important in lifestyle and lifestyle and hospitality. You know, the visual is very important. People want to see what they want to engage with. You know, that's what tells it apart. You're not trying to do any form of. We don't need anybody coming to talk very serious things here. We just need people that would be able to translate the brand in a very engaging and interactive way. So it's different. It's different. It's fun. It has to be exciting a little bit in your communication so that the audience also are able to engage with that. Yes. I would say that because in lifestyle, I think it is in recent times that you would see that some brands, skincare brands and all of that, are trying to also infuse impact in their communications. But when you even look at the impact too, it's not very serious. It's still very lifestyle-ish, you know, content creators contesting for who, you know, creates the best content of the product and all of those. So the communication is different, you know, it's lighter. I wonder if it would change at some point. In fact, at the beginning of this year, I was trying to do like a research by myself to see if we are going to be able to infuse some level of seriousness in lifestyle and hospitality communications, but I don't think that that's the essence of that side. If you're No, it's not. It's different. So yeah, I don't know if I was able to answer your question.
Yes, you've answered this a lot because I mean, for me, there's so much in what you're saying. You talked about the fact that it's it's the communications is very light, that it's very experiential, and that people want to see the glamour. That is, and that that even though the
People want
message.
to see the guest list. People want to see the people that are there, the guest list, who is coming, what platform is covering the live experience, you know?
And the funny thing is that, so I like what you're saying because it's still the same principle. Because even in corporates, when you have an event, it's important that, okay, for instance, is the minister coming? Is the president coming? But people are more concerned about what is he going to say, not what is he wearing? Do you know what I mean? And then, is he giving a speech? Are they giving a speech? Who was there? Was the hall full? Were all the captains of the industry there? So it's all about photo ops and messaging in corporates. But from what you're saying, and then it's always very high profile industry captain kind of people. But then in your own life, in the beauty and lifestyle world, it's about social media, it's about influencers,
About
and
pop culture.
yes, that's it. So it's completely different. And I think from what I'm also hearing you say, if we want to use an 80-20 rule, just for the sake of this conversation, and again, I know people watching later on will share comments. Could we say corporate is more like 80%, can be 80% comms and then 20%? That percentage doesn't matter. But let's just say comms is very much very heavy on comms and then PR. And in some organizations, actually, comms is 80%, PR is 20. Some it is maybe retail organizations, it could be 80%, 50% corporate, 20% PR. But in appears from what you're saying, that in the lifestyle and hospitality is like 80% PR and 20% or less comms. Is that
We
correct?
can say that. Yes, we can say that. It's heavily PR. There's comms, but it's heavily PR.
That's really, really interesting. So and that's more or less what I see because I noticed they're very PR-ish. And I think why this conversation is important for comms professionals is that, so if you are transitioning, for instance, from that kind of sector, and you now want to work in a corporate sector, and you now, like, for instance, you want to come to like a maybe like energy or construction or some of those places, you can't bring that pizzazz there and be telling them, oh, let's bring this influencer. They will just be looking at you like, do you even know where you are? Even if you are interviewing for that role, you have to be careful what you say. So you cannot be speaking in the context of glamour, buzz. They'll just be looking at, oh, how we're selling
How does
cement.
this tie into what we're
Yes,
doing?
we're
And in
selling
the
cement.
corporate side, they are very snobbish. They are actually very.
They are, they
They
can,
are
they can,
very.
there's a lot of snack. They can be very snacky,
Yes.
like,
Like,
you
what
know,
are you talking about?
absolutely. The same thing if you're going to work in a PR agency. I think before you take a job with a PR agency, find out what clientele they serve. Because again, if you, like somebody like me, make the mistake, in fact, I won't even find, my leg will not even enter there. So you are doing movie, you are doing premiere, you are dealing with the
There
top
are
entertainment. Do
nightclubs,
you understand?
soap, food.
Have to be in that culture already. You have to be that kind of person that one day when somebody, one maybe entertainer, one artist walks into the door, somebody in his crew already knows you because you already in that. You know what I mean? There has to be that street cred to some extent. It really, and if you don't, well, let's just. So that's just it. I think so. This is, I really like this. So next question. Let's go into. So now focusing on brand strategy, pivoting to brand strategy, what will you say you have learned about brand strategy in your work? Either, because this conversation is supposed to be rooted on brand strategy and marketing communications, which is what we did in our course, and you've talked a lot about the marketing com side. But what is the thing that you say is at the heart of how you see how brand strategy should be and how you model that, or what observations that you've had that are really, really important to you or that have stuck out to you in terms of how brand strategy is implemented with the clients you've worked for, with your experience over the years. What is your vision of how brand strategy is and how it should be?
You know, when I spoke about communications, I said communication stands on its own after marketing. I would also really say that brand strategy stands on its own. It's a complementary, you need both, you need it, and you need your communications strategy. But brand strategy stands on its own because if you don't have a defined brand, then there's nothing to communicate. So, in fact, as a matter of fact, I know that there's a time where at the agency I used to work with, my boss then, some people will come and say they want PR. And she will look, there's no brand strategy anywhere, or there's no brand that defines them, or there's no, she'll be like, okay, so what do you want to be known as? What do you want to be communicated as? They are quiet. She's like, but yeah, but you're supposed to understand what you are. That's your brand. So what's your brand? They would say like 10 things. And she would say, you know what? And then because of that, we had to implement brand strategy in our processes. Because sometimes you'd come, you say you want PR, you say you want your communication strategy, but you don't have a brand strategy. So that's where the problem is. So brand strategy is also a foundation of your organization, your brand, or even as an individual. Because a brand is what you are. A brand is what you've said that you are. And before you communicate to anybody, you need to know who you are. A brand is essentially your identity. I don't see what you're communicating if you don't know who you are. And, it feels like these things are a walk in the park when you say them to clients sometimes, or when you're having conversations with people that are not doing what you're doing. But they're very important and integral in the work that we do because there's nobody that does not know who they are that can speak in any room. You can't be called into rooms if they don't know what they can identify you as. You can't sell if you don't know what you identify yourself as. So where do you want us to communicate from? What do you want us to communicate? We can't communicate from thin air. So the brand strategy is very important because there are some times where you would look to, in fact, I built a communication strategy for a client. I had to build a brand strategy as well. I was trying to explain that this is not what I am supposed to do. In fact, if I was not experienced in this and if that I didn't have this skill set, I wouldn't have been able to do this for you. I would have done a communication strategy for you, but on nothing. So I had to identify who they are. Then I started building their communication strategy. So I see that these things are very, very, they're foundational problems. And we need to find a way to fix them. The brand strategy is important. Brand strategy is who you are. before you think about how you want to be. Say you want to be black, you want to be yellow, you want your logo to be a fish, or you want to sound like a robot, or you want to sound very clean, or you want to sound very, for lack of better words, raz. You need to be able to first of all say that this is who I am. And that is your brand strategy. Identity is very important. You need to know who you are, even in your daily life, your day-to-day life, before we even get into the profession. If you don't know what you want to be, first of all, you can't get into a job. You can't say you want to work any or everywhere. You need to know who you are, have yourself defined first, before anything else. So brand strategy, I would say, is a standalone that is very important. It's equally as important as your communication strategy, but you need it. You need to define your brand strategy first before anybody communicates anything.
So Rukawe, I'm just blown away. I hope people are listening. I'm blown away by everything that you say. I'm just blown away because it's shocking that you and I haven't had this conversation. I mean, the last time we probably spoke was in class, which was like a year ago. And even then, it wasn't a one-on-one conversation. It was you with other participants. So maybe you ask one or two questions, that's it. But everything that you're saying is what I have seen. You will be shocked. Rukawa said something. She said she'll be asking what they'll be asking, what's the brand strategy. The clients will not be able to answer. How is it possible that you are running a business, you don't know who your brand is, you don't know what you are, you have identity crisis. And you see, this is what, if I look away, you have confirmed that you are a communications consultant. Do you hear what I'm saying? Because please, you are confirmed. I'm telling you, you are a confirmed consultant. Because the normal agency approach, they will just go ahead and manufacture stories for you. It is only people that understand the importance of strategic communication or strategic PR or strategic implementation of PR and comms that will know that the first question is, who are you? Because I cannot speak. You are selling a brand. Products and services are derived from a brand. Who is this brand, first of all? Why should we listen to you? Who are you? What's your credibility? What's your purpose? What's your mission? What's your promise? And for me, I would think that these are things that if business leaders come into conversations, they know, but they don't. And exactly what you've described, that is what we end up doing most of the time. We end up having to go back to the brand strategy. Almost, and you'll be surprised, many of this, and let me not talk. So it's a big problem. I see we have somebody, Zaba from South Africa. Thank you, welcome. And I love it how you're posting where you're from. So we have participants, listeners from Ghana, from Zimbabwe. We also have from South Africa. You're most welcome. And I would like to hear some of the things we're saying. If it's different in your market, in your company, yes. Zaba here is saying it's important to have a narrative as a brand. It's so important. Where are you starting from? And then you hear what Ukewe said. She said she now had to craft the brand strategy by herself, whereas ideally it should come from within the organization. It should, because it's a self-reflection. You go through it and then you come out and say, this is who we are, not who the market, we are comfortable being. This is us. This is our reason for being. And then you build your strategy based on that. So I really like that. There's a lot of nuggets in what you said. I'm so happy that this is a recorded session so that we can go back and pick out some of these nuggets. So next question then. So we talked about brand strategy and you've talked so eloquently on that. In fact, some of your words, you said you can't communicate in thin air. Identity is very important. You need to know who you are. You said if you don't know who you are yet you want to speak, you want to communicate the word, but you yourself don't know who you are. I mean, how are you not surprised that the audience is confused? Because you too, you are confused. You're confused. So if there's internal confusion, there'll be external confusion. There'll be audience confusion as well because your brand, you have an identity crisis. So yeah, she said that that's the starting point. If you don't have a defined brand strategy, there can be no communication. Mic drop moments there. Defined. It has to be defined. You've written it down somewhere, and everybody that comes to work in your organization understands what that brand strategy is. So when you took our course, the SA&A brand strategy and marketing course, What was your key takeaway about marketing communications from that course? Was there anything that you took away that stuck with you that you can remember now?
I honestly think that it was a it was new, how do they say it, chartered waters or something. So it was a lot for me to sit with, which was good. So I think if anything, it stretched me. And what that did was there was capacity for me to know more, and there was capacity for me to understand more. It really just meant that there's more to what I knew already. So I'd say that it helps me in so many ways. I followed you on LinkedIn so that I can also continually consume the things that you shared, so that I can learn more, because some of the things were new to me. And at the time I was in my 9 to 5. I don't know about everybody else, but when you're there, because you also have a lot of things that you're doing, the level of assimilation is not as strong. Maybe everybody is different, but for me, I could pick what I could pick. The understanding wasn't fully clear, but the residual knowledge was with me. I understood the message that SA was passing across, and it stuck. It stayed with me. So even if I didn't fully understand it at the time, and I say, if you remember, I wasn't really speaking so much in class. I wasn't really speaking so much because, when people ask questions, there are some people that judge them that why should you be asking questions? But I think that it is from your understanding that understanding prompts you to ask questions. When you don't understand, not for every situation, there are situations where you don't need to ask questions, but when you don't understand certain things and you're following something, you'd ask more questions sometimes. Especially when you don't know it or when you don't have a full understanding of it. So I wasn't saying so much because I was consuming and I was assimilating. I don't know that there's one particular thing. Because to me, I even thought that why didn't I just do one thing? Because I did brand strategy and did brand communications. That's broad. It was a lot for me at the time. So I thought to myself last year that I wish I could text Essay to say I want to be in one of those classes again. But I'm like, you have to pay another money. I don't want to pay. I said I would definitely have had a different level of understanding and assimilation if I join it now. I would hear everything that you say and I would understand everything that you say clearly. But I'd say that it stretched my brain, and then it made me realize that there's capacity to know more and learn more. I was playing in a very tiny pond, and then it was almost like I was thrown in a big sea. So I was drowning in taking the course. I was drowning, but I was listening. So afterwards, I tried to get more understanding of what exactly that you were talking about. And yeah, so that's my experience. That was my experience.
Thank
My
you for
honest
sharing that.
experience.
So yes, I truly appreciate the honesty. I think for me, and this is I really like that you shared that, because I've also observed this where, people come into the courses at different stages of their career and their life. And there's some people who are, like you said, they're in that moment where, they're really ready, they're already doing the things. It's like when I did my MBA, we found out that when we talked to the people who were doing the full-time MBA and we that were doing the executive MBA, we found out that the experience was different for people who hadn't gone into the workplace and did the full-time MBA, and those of us who were doing the executive MBA after being in the workplace. So all of the case studies we were learning, we were able to apply it because we understood, we had faced those scenarios at in the office. So it was a different learning experience. But whenever we spoke to them, and that kind of thing. Also on SA&A courses, I've also noticed that there's some people who, like you are saying, they consuming, they're very quiet. There are a few of them that even after the classes, I'll be like, I hope this person really got something out of this class, or I'll even contact them after. But you know that in all of the cases that people like that, like what you've described, who were quiet and it seemed like they were assimilating and you were like they were not really there. In fact, there's one particular case, in fact, two. The way they've grown since that time is so stunning to me, because in fact there was one that After the class, I almost wanted to tell her that I think I should refund your money. As in, I think I even had the conversation because I just felt, no, in fact, but since then, so I think what the courses do is that, and I said that at the beginning, we come to teach you what you don't know. Success is knowing what you do not know. There are some people it comes to confirm what they already know. Some it opens new doors for them. But the number one objective is for you to know what you do not know. Because what I see is that in our profession, a lot of people are not even aware that there are things they do not know. Whether you know it or not is a secondary issue, but you need to be aware.
Because the time I took the course, I was focused more on PR.
Oh, I see. That's it. That's it. So so for me, that is the most important thing. Thank you very much for sharing that. And it's just really, really nice when I hear the feedback that I get from people around the courses in terms of where you are in your career and how it really impacts you. So let me show some of the comments from okay, so yes. Okay, it's also Chief again, Sibiri saying you can't communicate in thin air. Yes, those are Rukewe sound bites. Know yourself first before you seek to communicate. Yes, so you say you are up. Olabeleko, okay, we believe you. Okay, I was going to ask you a question here, but okay, I think you already answered that. So I would say, what is your biggest challenge? We're almost, okay, yeah, we have about 10, 11 minutes more. What is your biggest challenge as a comms practitioner? By the way, questions, doesn't anybody have any question for Rukewe or for me, or for Rukewe in particular? Is there anything you'd like to say? Please send in your comments. There's a bit of a there's a bit of a delay on the LinkedIn app towards where we are recording from. So if you send it in, we may not see it immediately. So if you want us to address your question before the end of the hour, by top of the hour, please send them now so that we can see it before the hour. Otherwise, if you send it in the last few minutes, we would have dialed out before you ended the call before we see it. So, Rukewe, please, what's your biggest challenge as a communications practitioner and how are you navigating it? And then in addition to that, will you describe yourself now as a PR person or a comms person or a PR and a comms person? How would you describe yourself personally?
So I describe myself as a comms and PR person. In fact, sometimes I add brand strategies, but it's long, it's a lot. So it depends. Sometimes I present myself as all three. Sometimes I do just PR, sometimes I do just comms. But I think that comms is more umbrella for me. So if I want to communicate myself, I say communications consultant, but it really depends. Sometimes I use the three, sometimes I use one. But I play around all fields. I'm a communications person, I'm a PR person, and I'm a brand strategist.
So, what is your biggest challenge and how are you navigating it?
My biggest challenge, I think I've even said something around that. So I'll give an example. There was a client that came and wanted tactical work when they came on board. And I said, okay, let's start. When you ask some questions and you now give questionnaires, and you see that, okay, because they complained though, seriously. And to me, in fact, their social media managers and all those other people, they were hitting the brick wall because they needed to now achieve vanity metrics, vanity numbers, but you're communicating nothing. You're not in alignment with your audience. So what are you communicating? And I saw that no, 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 no. It is not any tactical situation here. It is a communication problem that you guys don't have. You don't have a communication strategy. So I built it all. Plus the internal communication strategy. I had to build an internal communication strategy. And then I built an external communication strategy for them. So it was a 360 communication strategy that I built for them. I said, no, it's not tactical you guys want. And if you guys want me to do tactical alone for you, maybe I'm not the one. I can't, if even me, I can't. Where do you want me? How do I start? It'll be hard for me. Some people may want to do that for you and just take the money, but I don't think that I won't feel fulfilled. It wouldn't be very rewarding for me. I'm not going to be happy. Now, when I see the brand communicate, I'm happy. I'm joyous. They communicate with intention, they communicate intentionally, and you can just see it. And you can see that it is not forced. They are not trying to do what brand A is doing. They are trying to do what they are supposed to do. So I think there a lot of clients don't fully understand it yet. I don't know that I can do much. I appreciate you, SA, for doing this for us and for the fold, and for every veteran that also tries to take the initiative to teach. Because beyond even the professionals that need to be taught, clients need to also understand our profession. I think that's one of the things I struggle with, and one of the challenges for me as a communications consultant. I think that our profession is not taken so seriously yet. Like, you see how lawyers are taken seriously and respected. You see how doctors are taken seriously and respected. Communications professionals and consultants, it seems like our work is we're not taken seriously as professionals. You see a lot of people swear that they can do our work. A lot of clients swear that what we're doing is nothing. Why should we be paid for doing the barest minimum? I think it's very painful. Even with the rise of AI as well, you would see that people would say, oh, AI would do it for me. I can do it myself. But no, I'm sorry. It breaks my heart. So I don't really know what to do, but I'm going to try. I also really hope that our bodies and our professional bodies are also able to help, because it's not very good for us. This is a profession that I am in. I love it. I love what I do. It's a very intelligent profession. It is a profession that makes me cut across sectors. I just said that I've done lifestyle hospitality. I'm in corporate. I can do impact. That is a communications professional talking. That's a communications consultant talking. Doctors are doctors. Lawyers are lawyers. We are able to cut across fields, even though we are not, you know, we can't practice fully. We're not practitioners, but we understand these things. We're well read because of the kind of work that we do. So it doesn't feel like a lot of value is put in the work that we do, and it's very heartbreaking.
I don't even know what to say, Rukewe. I wish I could just pieces all this, everything you're saying, and just make carousels based on what you're saying. Because there's a lot to unpack here. You're really correct. And I'm just going to first of all read the things I wrote down. You said the question was, how you navigate the challenges that you face in the profession. And you said, well, you talked about the example how you helped a client, they wanted to do tactical PR, and you found out that they were not even ready for that. They didn't even, they just didn't have the structure to even do what they felt they needed to do. So there was no com strategy. You then had to come up with an internal and external com strategy for them. In fact, just that thing that you did alone just makes me understand that truly you're not just a PR person, because there's no PR person, there's no hardcore PR person without a comms mindset that can develop an internal comms strategy. You can only do internal comms if you are a comms person. PR people don't even get into that internal space at all. So clearly, the way you've branded, I think you're not just branding yourself as a comms, PR, and brand person just for the sake of branding. You actually carry those elements in you. That's coming out really strongly. Then you talked about the fact that now, after you worked with that brand, they're now communicating intentionally. They're not just following the bandwagon, but they're saying what they need to say based on an understanding of what they want to achieve and their audience. They're being more strategic about their communication, more purposeful. They found their voice and they're finding their space. Excellent. But you now really honed in on this challenge which I talked about before, which is that they don't really understand our profession, and we're not taken seriously. That is it. And oh God, I don't even know what to say about, because this is the truth. We are not taking, and like you said, it's heartbreaking. It's so painful. But for me, the thing is, I realize that it's not even the fault of the clients, it's the fault of our professional bodies. I think we as a profession have not positioned ourselves to be taken seriously. And it's going to take a lot of work from a lot of people, and like I said, so-called veterans and professional institutions, realizing that we have to modernize and standardize the profession in such a way that we can begin to be taken seriously, because the other professions too, they have structures, they have standards. That's why they're taken seriously. It didn't just happen overnight. You can't be like, you can't just wake up one day and claim to be a pediatrician or claim to be a commercial lawyer, without having experience in that way. You can't be a senior advocate of Nigeria without having gone through a certain paces. So we don't have that. And all of these things, they are expertise driven, they are experience driven, very, very prescriptive in terms of the path and what you must do. So my personal belief is that because we don't have that, that really puts us in this space. And I like when you say we're an intelligent profession. To be honest, I think a lot of us in communications do not even present ourselves like intelligent people. Now, you are able to say this because you have successfully worked across sectors. I see some communications and PR professionals working in businesses. They don't even know how that business makes money. Who is going to respect you? They don't understand the business language. When they come up with a comms plan, it looks, you cannot even tell from the comms plan that it was created for a company that is doing a particular kind of business. You can't even see business language in that comms plan. I've had some people present, comms plans, and I'll be like, do you know that this thing you sent to me, I can take it to MTN, I can take it anywhere, and the MTN manager will read it and not know that he created it for a client in the cement industry. So if your comm strategy is lacking business particularity, how can a business leader see it and think that you understand what he's doing? Or do you understand? Whereas when HR comes up with an HR plan for a cement factory, everything in the HR plan will show you that the strategy is tailored to keeping that factory full, making sure that the technicians are skilled, they have the expertise that they need, that the procurement people everything will be particular. You will, from the HR plan, you can tell that it was written for a cement factory. But PR comms plans, you look at it and you can't tell whether it was made for a skincare product, because that's it. So again, it's many things, people being winging it, but there's a lot we have to do in that space. So thank you for sharing that. And the reason why I'm hammering on and emphasizing these things she said is that if you are not being taken seriously in your organization, understand why. There's a systemic issue, which is institutional, and there's also what we as comms professionals are doing or are not doing as well. So if you make sure you make yourself more business relevant, they will take you seriously in your organization, even though systemic, we can't change the systemic one. But if the two of them are the same, the professional, systemic, whatever is there, and then you two are not showing much in that space, then there's a problem. I think there was a question asking what is tactical PR. When you mentioned that I've been asked to do tactical comms strategy, I think you to explain what you meant by that. Please clarify.
So tactical PR are byproducts of your communication strategy. So when you've defined who you are, you've defined internally what you guys stand for, and all of those, the kind of people that you want to see what you do and all of that. Tactical is now saying, okay, now as a PR professional, I'm going to create a PR plan for you, maybe a media plan to see where you can put your press releases, your press stories, what platforms should it be on. So Olamileko, to summarize this because of time, tactical is the byproduct of your communication strategy. It's the things that you do when you have a defined communication strategy as an organization. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, Olamileko, please respond and let us know whether that answers your question. And what I really like about the conversation I'm having here with Rukewe is that we're really getting into the technical components of things. Now, a lot of us go straight to tactical. That's why that question is coming up. In most places, people just, we're going to do this thing. In fact, the one that I hate, when people say, let's do a walk. I hate hearing that thing. When they want to do a publicity drive, the first thing they say, there's a name they call it. They say they want to, and I'll just be like, why? Who is your audience on the streets? Are you selling agege bread? What is it about a walk that you guys just think everything? So you have not defined who. It's like me, SA&A now. In fact, where we operate from, nobody even knows that we exist. They don't know.
Yeah,
Because
people just like to follow. I think people just like to follow the bandwagon. People like to do things that are already working or things that have traction. And that's a problem because that's not what you are. That's who they are. That's not who you are. So it's a problem.
And why I'm saying we were hammering on all these things is that the sooner, I mean, I remember when I was comms manager in my former work life, when I was still working on client side, in my early days before I became a comms leader and all of that, one of the first things that I stopped was when people would just come, like people, and they had this habit of saying, they would just come and be like, oh, come and do banner, we have an event. They won't let us know that they're having an event, they will not have told us. This was the early days, actually, before com, we were still doing PR then. And they would just come and be like, come and do a banner for us. So that had been going on. So people would just come, they would do the event, they would even tell us whether there's media, they will not inform us. And then they just come to comms and PR people and say we should do the banner. By the time I had a little bit of sense in my head, I just told them, I said, and I told my team, I said, anybody that comes to you, first of all, we set up a policy that says lead time. If you have an event, you are going to tell us, just like that form, who is it, who is the audience, what are you trying to achieve? And that anybody that comes like a day before and says they want a banner, that we should tell them that since they've already decided what they want to communicate and how, even up to the point of deciding that banner is what they are going to do, they should go ahead and finish the work by themselves, that the PR team has no input in it because we are not printers. So when I started doing that, that was when that nonsense stopped. So do you understand what I'm saying? Because you think I went to school to be printing banner? Hey, Lord have mercy. I got a first degree and second printing banner.
Or to write a press release.
Yeah, but I mean, press release said at least to write press release, I need whatever. But I'm saying at least by the time you say I should write press release, you have to tell me what, why. But you're right. Even at that, you shouldn't be Shola, come and write a press release. We should be in the conversation about what's going on. What are we trying to achieve? And then we decide collectively whether a press release is the best way to handle this issue, because it may not. Depending on the audience, the circumstances, we may just need a holding statement. So do you understand? So this is the difference between strategic and tactical. And I think for anybody, because a lot of people, when they come for our courses, we're not really, I always say people feel like you can't really do much. If they tell you that that's what you have to do, then you have to do it. But I think there's a point at which you have to decide for yourself whether you're going to continue to be led by people who don't really know where they're going either, and at what point will you assert yourself as a professional and as a leader in your country. I mean, in your profession. So I think we're almost out of time. In fact, we're out of time right now. Yes. Nice comments here. So comment from Zigbordi. Can you highlight a bit of the too much overlapping that is associated with PR and comms? I think that would be the last question, and can I just answer it from there? Then we'll bring it to a close. What do you think about that overlap?
What are the overlap? I mean, like I said, they work side by side. They work together. They are both important. You don't just take one. You need both. But I'd say that communications is like your roots. If you're building a house, you start from somewhere. Let me use that analogy. You start from somewhere. The foundation that you set before you build the structure and stuff, the foundation is the communications. I don't know if this answers your question. So when you have a solid foundation, then you can now say, okay, I want to put my, the window should be this way, and I want to have like a pop on my roof and all of that. That's the PR. Or when you've built the house, I want the painting to, I want it to look a type of way. These are the things that we need to purchase to do this, for it to look like this, for the window to look like this. So the communications is the foundation, and then the PR is what you do after your foundation is set. For me.
So I think for me, thanks for that. And I'll just add my top ends. So for me, and a lot of my content is really in trying to separate these two. And some people in the profession are like, Shona, why do you always try to separate it? But I think it's important for us to, as much as we can. And I continue to, I'm growing even in my knowledge of learning how to pass on this message even more, because the profession is still evolving as well. So, the best way, and I still haven't, actually, like I said, I'm still growing and developing my thinking, but the sense I get, in addition to what Rukewe said, is that or the way I try to frame it in my mind is that PR is very much relationship driven, and it focuses on things like personal relationships and bringing people close and engagement, that kind of thing. Comms is very much about messaging. That's the number one thing. There is strategy that is PR strategy, but the PR strategy is also about people, is about relationships. PR has a very personal touch to it. And if you don't understand that difference, like what Rukewe said, she gave us a perfect example. Because in the hospitality industry, it's very personal. It's very one-on-one. You cannot go there with the comms messaging at a distance, remote messaging, and you want to work in that sector. So it's important that we understand. To me, there's no overlap, there's collaboration. We work on the same things, but in different ways. Comms is very much, like I said, about what are we saying, the audience. The comms doesn't really look at the human beings per se. It's looking more at the mindsets, the beliefs, the values. But PR is very personal. It's looking at this human being or this sector of people, this category of people, and it's targeting them in a very relationship-based way, which is what Rukewe described when she was talking about the lifestyle thing and how people, you want to know about the social influencers. Like I said, if it's in corporate comms, like you have a corporate event and you're doing mostly messages, people just want to know that, okay, this big minister came there and all that, and what did they say? They're focused on what they said. But in lifestyle, they are focused on how they dressed, what they wore, how they looked, how they got out of their car. Who really cares about that in the whole comms thing? We don't give a hoot, So it's the same thing. So knowing when a situation requires more of PR and more of comms, and the comms aspect and there are many, I've tried to illustrate this. We don't have time to do that now. But if you're running a campaign, you have to know the PR thing. So the PR things will be publicity, the protocol, the meet and the greets, the
Media relations.
Exactly, media relations, getting them the press kit and the press car pack, the immersion experiences, activations on site. The messaging is making sure that there is consistent messaging at every touch point. Making sure that whatever it is that is being said by the ushers, that is written on the whole board, is consistent with what is in the brochure. That's the comms remit. So it's not an overlap, particularly if you're a leader, because if you go and pick somebody that is PR minded and you don't bring somebody in to look into the comms piece, not everybody is like Rukewe who is able to do all. Some people, they're hardcore PR people, they don't really see that comms messaging piece and they struggle with that messaging. But you have to have people who will sit with the messaging and develop something comprehensive for both media, for internal comms, for external comms, for stakeholders. They will and make sure that there's alignment. So they will feed that messaging, give it to PR. PR too, the PR person too will make sure it manages the sensitivities in their stakeholders and all of that. But you have to have that person who is able to sit down with the messaging. And it's not a PR skill. The PR is very good with short form writing, like maybe press releases and things like that. But that message curation is a hardcore communication skill. Hardcore. Because anyway, don't get me started on that messaging piece. So I hope that answers your question a bit. We have to bring this to an end because we're over the hour. And I'd like to say thank you to all our engaged joiners, particularly colleagues from Ghana, Zimbabwe, South Africa who dropped in the chats. I know there may be some other people who dropped in the chats and maybe I missed you. So thank you very much. And please share with other colleagues that you think this would be useful for. Rukewe, thank you so much for coming. This has been so wonderful. I don't know if there's any last thing you would like to drop with anyone, in fact, you've answered all my questions. My last question was that what would you wish to change about the comms profession? And you already answered that about, you wish there was more understanding and things were more structured within the profession. So any last thoughts, and we'll bring it to a close on that point.
I just want to say thank you for this opportunity. I thought it was a very good and insightful conversation, even for me. I don't know that. I think everybody should just continue learning. I don't think it ever stops. We don't know it all. Just keep learning, even as we practice, just to get better in the profession. And for our younger colleagues in the profession as well, we should please be inclusive and teach people and not let people just walk through the path in isolation, just so that their path is shorter. So that's what I think I'd say. Start from somewhere.
Thank you very much for that. I think that's an excellent closing. We should teach the younger ones, make their pathway shorter. And because I really see that a lot of young people really need that support. Thank you so much. And there's one thing that you said, which I'll live with. I'll reiterate again and live with everybody who joined and those who watch this afterwards, which is that please let us do in our own little space whatever we can to ensure that even if anybody met with you as a comms professional and before they met with you, they didn't take the profession seriously or they thought that people that do comms are not intelligent, please make a commitment that by the time they deal with you, they will know that it takes intelligence to be a communications professional and that we should be taken seriously. I think collectively we can make a change. I am very much committed to making sure that within our space as SA&A and the platforms that God will enable us to be in, we're going to try and make a difference and make sure things are a little bit more structured with time. But I know that we can't do it all, just like what Rukewe said. So each of us, we have a role to play as well. And we do hope that you connect with us, each of us separately, with Rukewe and myself. And let's keep the conversation going. Share this video session with others as well. So thanks for joining. And it's bye from us for now. Our next LinkedIn Live is going to be next month when I bring our next guest on Spotlight on SA&A course alumni. Thank you very much. And bye for now. Thank you, Rukewe. Thank you so much. It's been great. Thank you. Bye, everyone.